Hey, I'm Kelvin Blunt, and this is Straight No Chaser. Every week, we dig into history, myths, and meanings behind male sexuality, what's been studied, what's been silenced, and what's still hiding in plain sight. If you haven't already, follow the show, rate it, and subscribe to my Substack for the essays that inspire these episodes. The links will be in the show notes. Today, the question that won't die. Are we born this way? What if we never find out the truth? I mean, the phrase born this way began as armor, a shield against persecution, but somehow it became a test, a challenge to prove we belong, as if our DNA needed a permission slip. Maybe this never was about biology or destiny at all. Maybe it was about power. The idea of sexual orientation didn't drop from the sky. It was invented, born of urgency and grief. In 1867, Karl Heinrich Ulrich became the first person to publicly argue for same-sex love as natural and inborn. His friend and colleague, Karl Maria Kertbeny, combined those ideas. A year later, May 6, 1868, Kertbeny wrote a letter to Ulrich that changed everything. He coined the words homosexual and heterosexual. His goal was not to label souls, but to discriminate acts. He believed the government had no business in consensual sex between adults. And for Kertbeny, it was personal. A close friend that killed himself after being blackmailed for being what we now know as gay. But under Victorian rule and religious moralism, those same words were twisted into tools to catalog sin. Same-sex love became a crime, and the people once called inverts or earnings were ostracized, jailed, even killed. The language built for liberation was repurposed for punishment, and unfortunately, many members of the medical community helped out with that. Ever since, science has been asked to play judge and jury. Researchers try to quantify desire while culture whispers in their ears. Psychologist Lisa Diamond asks, why do we believe being born this way is what makes us deserving of rights? It's a good question. Equality isn't a lab result. And here's a curveball. Science has documented same-sex behavior in animals for centuries without drama. It only became controversial when the species was us, and human beings are the don't you know who we are of Mother Nature. Heterosexuality was sold as nature's default, but really it's the default of dominance. From colonial laws to capitalist norms, society needed a normal to police everything else. Even today, we don't ask straight people for proof unless they're quote-unquote gay for pay. Only the accused must explain themselves. Men especially learned that to be desired by a man was to risk losing their place in the pecking order. So they feared not rejection, but revelation. You may not know this, but when Kinsey and his team interviewed thousands of Americans in the 1940s and 1950s, they never asked about orientation at all. Sexual orientation was relatively new. It wasn't a part of the public lexicon when Kinsey and his team were performing the most famous and still widespread sexual research in history. They asked about behavior, what you had done, not what you called yourself. And they also didn't judge participants on what they did. And they focused on a short window of time, a few years, not a lifetime, because Kinsey knew sexuality shifts. His scale ran from 0 to 6 plus X for those who felt no sexual attraction, what we now know as asexual or ace. Kinsey was mapping motion, not boxes. We were never meant to freeze at one number forever. I mean, good on you if that's what you believe about yourself, but that wasn't Kinsey's intent. But culture turned that fluid scale into a scoreboard. Kinsey didn't prove we're all the same. He proved we never were, nor did we need to be. Maybe that's why Gen Z is so unbothered by labels. They're not waiting for a gene to validate them. They treat identity as a journey, not a destination, and that drives the gatekeepers mad. They understand what Ulrich and Kertbeny hinted at almost 160 years ago. Our freedom doesn't depend on origin stories. Depends on empathy. So here's a thought to carry with you. If sexuality were truly fixed, how could it adapt so easily across cultures and centuries and languages? Maybe its fluidity is the evidence, not the exception. So with that, thanks for listening to Straight No Chaser. If this episode sparks something, share it and subscribe wherever you listen. The full essay, Born This Way, is in the show notes. You'll also find pieces on Alfred Kinsey, Gay for Pay, and the soldiers whose stories reshape what we think we know about sex and identity. I'm Kelvin Blunt. I'll see you next time.